Welcome to Unbiased and On the Fence. Our special guest on Paranormal Frequencies is Rey Hernandez. Rey is one of the 4 co-founders of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation. The other co-founders were the late Apollo 14 astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the 6th man to walk on the moon and the founder of the Institute for Noetic Sciences. Dr. Rudy Schild, Emeritus Professor of Astrophysics at Harvard University, and Australian UAP experiencer, researcher Mary Rodwell. Dr. Rudy Schild is Free's Executive Director. Rey graduated with honors from Rutgers College, was a master's candidate at Cornell University, and was a Ph.D. candidate at the University of California at Berkeley, where he was the recipient of the National Science Foundation Ph.D. Fellowship. He previously was an adjunct professor for 6 years at the New School for Social Research and at the City University of New York. Rey is currently an attorney with the US Dept of Treasury. Rey is also one of the 3 co-editors of the historic 820-page book titled Beyond UFOs, The Science of Consciousness in Contact with Non-Human Intelligence, which was based on Free's 5-year comprehensive academic research study on UFO-related contact experiencers. Rey has also been published in several peer-reviewed academic journals, including the Journal of Consciousness Studies and the Journal of the Society for Scientific Exploration. Rey's new projects are a 3-volume book and a full-feature science documentary titled Beyond Materialism, The New Paradigm of Consciousness in Contact with Non-Human Intelligence via the Unified Paranormal Contact Modalities. The Free's website is consciousnessandcontact.org. Wow, that's quite an impressive bio, quite an impressive lineup. Welcome to the program. Rey, how are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh man, we were just having a blast talking about all this stuff before we went on. I did just play the bio, so what an impressive lineup. I mean, this project is really second to none. I mean, this is a very unique way of going about it, and we're talking about academics, professors, professionals, people that are qualified in this field, overly qualified. Tell us about this.
Well, the organization is the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial and Extraordinary Experiences. It's a 501c3 academic research institute. It's got approximately 15 PhD academics, retired professors, and roughly half of them are experiencers themselves. And we also have on our board of directors individuals that have researched mainly the UFO contact phenomenon, but we're also going to be bringing in individuals that have researched near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences. People like, for example, Mary Rodwell and Kathy Martin, Barbara Lamb, Leo Sprinkle. Those two individuals are pioneers in the field of UFO contact experiencers and abduction experiencers. So they're not academics, but they've had their boots on the ground for over 30 years or 40 years in some cases. So it's a mixture of both the PhDs and the people that have been researching the UFO contact phenomenon. But our organization is not a ufology organization. We have zero interest in nuts and bolts ufology. Um, the research study that we did on UFO contact experiencers, we did that mainly because no one has ever done that study before. We knew absolutely nothing about the UFO contact phenomenon, the experiencer contact phenomenon. What you had was thousands of individual cases. And then you had people that did hypnotic regressions and would publish books on hypnotic regressions, and that's not academic research. So from our perspective, from our organization, we knew very little about this phenomenon. And the reason why we did that study was because all of the members of our board of directors, and as I said before, we have 14 retired academic professors. The co-founders of our organization were the late Apollo 14 astronaut, Dr. Edgar Mitchell. And the other co-founder was Dr. Rudy Schild. He is an emeritus professor of astrophysics at Harvard University. So this is not just a couple of people from the street corner getting together to do this research study. We're talking the 6 men to walk on the moon, Ph.D. from MIT, Rudy Schild, who has been a professor for 40 years at Harvard University in astrophysics, and Mary Rodwell and myself. And we have a PhD neuroscientist, Dr. Bob Davis, Dr. John Klimo, who has a PhD in psychology, a professor for 45 years, one of the few professors to be a tenured professor, studying mainly the paranormal. Dean Radin is a board of advisor. Dr. Claude Swanson has been a founding board member, and he has a PhD in physics from Princeton University. So, and many other professors. I could go on and to tell you their details. Now, all of the members of our organization, we believe that all of what we're calling the contact modalities are unified, that it's one phenomenon. And let me explain what that is. All the people that have had UFO-related contact, all the people that have had near-death experiences, the people that have had out-of-body experiences, the people that have seen ghosts and spirits, the people that have undertaken remote viewing, channeling, mystical meditation, hallucinogenic shamanic journeys, out-of-body experiencing. All of these are different ways that humans have pierced the veil and have had contact with non-human intelligence. Our organization and our academic scientists and research, we hypothesize that all of this is one phenomenon, and we need to study it comparatively as a unified phenomenon instead of individually. We also have an approach that these phenomenon involve a manipulation of space-time. If anybody is aware of the name Dr. Jacques Vallée, Jacques Vallée is pretty much the godfather with Allen Hynek of the field of ufology. He always viewed the ufology phenomenon not from a materialist perspective, but that this phenomenon involves the manipulation of space-time, and that these entities might be multi-dimensional. Mm-hmm. Okay. Also, all of these phenomena involve a manipulation of space-time. For example, near-death experiences. That's a classic example of a manipulation of space and time. Out-of-body experiences, the same thing. Okay, remote viewing, channeling, ghosts and spirits. Okay, we're having, dead spirits of dead people communicating with live people. So obviously a manipulation of space-time. So it's quite obvious to the members of our organization that this has one source and it's one phenomenon. And the other perspective of our organization is that we are not a we do not undertake a materialist approach. That means that our reality um, is not what we think it is much, much more complex, that it's actually a multi-dimensional reality, and that consciousness is the key to understanding this reality. So, in other words, consciousness is primary and not materialism. It's a little bit difficult to understand, but if you could think of that, our world, our reality that we see right now is an illusion. That the true nature of our reality is within the consciousness of every individual, and that again, we don't have definitive answers that might explain this reality, but quantum physics also understands that that consciousness is primary. Why? Because of the double slit experiment, the entanglement theory. There's numerous aspects of consciousness involved in quantum physics, and that's why a lot of the early inventors of quantum physics, many of them were very much interested in Eastern philosophy, because of the aspects of the nature of reality in Eastern philosophy very much matches up with the consciousness aspect of quantum physics. And also, you could even go back to ancient Greeks and ancient cultures. Plato, for example, saw our material reality also as an illusion. So it has historical roots among many ancient cultures and philosophies. So so again, these are just illustrations that we are not a ufology organization. We have zero interest in photos and pictures and, oh, here's a new video that just came out.
Right.
No, that's not gonna. What has that approach given us in 75 years?
Right.
Okay, very little. But yet in our research study, which I could go over in a couple of minutes, we've had earth-shattering findings that totally contradict what's been circulating in the field of ufology.
Absolutely. And my co-host for my Saturday show, Eileen, is currently reading your book. She says it's a giant book, but she's loving it. It's full of awesome data, and it flips a lot of the things on their head of what we typically view this thing as, like this horrible negative thing that people experience, and that's just not what the numbers say, is it?
No, correct. It's much more complex than what the field of materialist ufology thinks it is. And the reason why is because no one has ever done this study before.
Exactly. And they have their, I guess, vested interest to push fear out there too, whether it's to sell movies or whatever, so they put that twist on it. But yeah, I was really surprised at the numbers. Another thing that Eileen was saying is that she had a very physical experience, and she found out she was actually in the minority, that many times people are taken just with their consciousness, like you were just talking about, to the, how did you guys call it, the matrix?
Matrix reality. Actually, it's not the minority. We've had almost double the number of people where their consciousness was brought to a matrix reality than the people that have had abductions.
Right. She was a physical contactee. So that's why she was saying she kind of felt like she would be in the majority, but she was actually, it was more people had actually done it, like you were just saying. It's just the consciousness is taken.
Well, sometimes people think that it's physical, though, and it's their
correct.
Because the out-of-body experience is so physical compared to even this reality.
Correct. It's verbiage and terminology does not do it justice, because it's both physical and it's not physical, because you have your senses of seeing, of sight, of knowingness. You have the senses that you believe that you are in a physical reality, but you know that reality is non-physical. So it's very, very difficult to explain.
That's why you had to ask so many questions in the service to try to figure this out, right?
Correct. I mean, we have Dr. Jeffrey Long, who is an oncologist. He's a cancer doctor. He's one of the world's leading experts on near-death experiences. And Jeffrey's going to be joining our board of directors. For the last 20 years almost, he's been conducting also an academic research study of near-death experiences. Very similar surveys as both quantitative and qualitative instruments that he used, also with several open-ended questions. And so he's very much aware of this whole aspect of contact in the matrix reality, because it involves very, very similar phenomenon to an out-of-body experience. And he also has a survey for out-of-body experiencers. And again, if you were not aware that UFO contactees are being brought to matrix realities, like Jeffrey Long, he was totally clueless. Dr. Raymond Moody, who's another expert on NDEs. Dr. Kenneth Ring, another of the leading researchers on near-death experiences. These individuals had no idea what was going on with UFO contactees because the research was never done. But then for each of them, when I would stop and I would say during my interviews of them, I said, do you realize that for the last 45 minutes, I've been asking you questions from our book, Beyond UFOs? And they were all stunned because they thought that those questions related to near-death experiences. And then they realized, they said, oh my God, these two phenomenon are parallel to each other. They overlap each other. There's so many similarities. So yes, I forgot your name.
I'm Shane, and Sherry.
Sherry, I apologize, Sherry.
No, it's okay.
Sherry was so lovely when she was communicating with me, inviting me to come here, and it's an honor, Sherry, to be here in Shane.
Yeah, whenever we started doing this show, you were one of the first people I thought of, and I apologize because I was looking up your name under Ray, R-A-Y. I couldn't find contact. I could find where you'd speak, but I couldn't find, like, conferences, but I couldn't find. I just didn't notice that. I don't know, but I got you now. So
no, we're here, and my first name is actually Reynerio, but even my mother calls me Rey.
Yes,
Rey. But Rey in Spanish is R-E-Y, but Reynerio is R-E-I-N-E-R-I-O. So for your audience members, it's Rey Hernandez. That's nice and easy.
Yeah, it makes it easier.
So excited to hear about your experiences, at your house, you and your wife.
Well, that's how all of this started, because we had a 16-year-old dog that became totally paralyzed. And then on a Saturday night, my wife had just came back from a 3-day retreat at her Catholic church, where all you do is pray for 3 days. And so, obviously she was very, very saddened that our dog was totally paralyzed. Had called up our vet, Dr. Phil Cruz, from Redbird Animal Clinic. I had a skeptic that actually called him up to verify what I was telling him. Unbelievable, some of these people. So she began to pray all night. Because she had just come from 3 days of praying, so she just continued all night to pray. And I went to sleep because I was a total atheist at that time. And then when we both got up in the morning, we checked the dog. The dog was still totally paralyzed. And so she carried the dog down the stairs. It was a small dog. It was a Jack Russell Terrier. And I went back to sleep. And then in the middle of the living room, this object appeared. I won't go into the details because it just takes too long. And then she began to pray. And then this object beamed like a green light on her. And she then called me to come down to see her angel. And then when I didn't respond, she went upstairs and hauled me out of bed. So we both went down the stairs. And then right in front of me in the living room, she disappeared. And then this, what I call an energy being, and what it looked like, It looked uh, like a rectangle about 2 feet wide, about a foot in height, of pure energy. It didn't have any sides to it, because it was pure energy, multiple colors waving like an energy wave, transparent. And whatever this intelligent was, it totally took over my consciousness. And it basically, I waved my hand at it and I said, BS. This is what you got me up for this crap, And then I turned around and I walked upstairs. I didn't even care that my wife had disappeared in front of me. The dog had disappeared. I didn't even care what this thing was. I was in a hypnotic trance. And then I went upstairs and it put me to sleep. 45 minutes later, when I woke up, I was now fully conscious. And then I ran down the stairs and my wife just popped in there. She looked down. The dog was running around the living room. And then she started celebrating. Hallelujah, hallelujah. The angels cured her. The angels cured her. And so to me, the best description, it was like an atom bomb blew up in your brain, because your total sense of reality gets totally destroyed. And then she had what is called missing time. We found out 6 months later, after we had called MUFON, after 3 major occurrences to us, by my wife and I and my daughter. And I said, I found out that there's this organization, and she came by, this researcher, and she said, what happened to your wife is missing time. That's why she has no idea, no recollection where she was those 45 minutes. But our dog was completely healthy. She was like a little puppy. And
Wow.
and then after that, my wife began to see tons of UFOs. She would actually call them down, because she called down her angels, and what would show up? UFOs. And 3 times, one time, these 3 beings dressed in white monk's robes floated right in front of her. And lots of paranormal experiences, primarily precognition with my wife. She detected a tumor that I had in my back. She knew that our car was going to explode if we took this trip. It was the trip to our first UFO conference, and lots of other precognition, that she, how does she know these things? But she had that gift for about 2 years. And then after my daughter and I had this very up close encounter with this huge UFO that was right on top of us, less than 30 feet away, then I experienced the same thing for about a 2-year period, where if you meet individuals, whether someone is an experiencer or not. It could be out-of-body experiencer. They could be communicating with ghosts and spirits. They might have seen UFOs. You just knew that this person was some type of an experiencer, i.e. that they had crossed the veil, and have had contact with non-human intelligence. And it was like a knowingness. If you're close to someone, it's like something's going on with this person. I don't know whether it's UFOs, ghosts. They've had a near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences. So I would start a conversation. And then eventually, as we pry more into the paranormal topics, then they finally tell you, yes, I had this. And so it was like almost 100% hit rate. The first 9 months were intensive, and then it slowly, gradually dissipated. But anyway, it lots of paranormal experiences. And so what had happened was that our organization got started over a 2-day period, where whatever this intelligence is put me in contact through a series of orchestrated arrangements with Mary Rodwell, Dr. Rudy Shields, the professor from Harvard, and the late astronaut Edgar Mitchell. If you'd like, I could tell you a little bit about that, but it really, for some of your listeners, it really is way out there.
Okay, well, you're in the right group here, because a lot of the people that join here on our channel, they come here because most of their family thinks they're crazy, and we can come together and just have a conversation about things that other people think are crazy. So you're in the perfect group here.
Okay.
We have a lot of experiencers here, so yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, well, This was in May of 2013, so it's a little bit over a year after the first initial experience. After I called down my first UFO craft, and 15 minutes it appeared, except it was a football stadium-sized object that was right on top of my next-door neighbor's house, less than 30 feet away from us. And my daughter got to see it, 3 close friends, and it interacted with us for 45 minutes. I won't give you the details because it's a lengthy experience. And after that, I began to have numerous paranormal experiences. And some of them were NDE related, which again, those are very lengthy, and we don't have enough time to go through that. But in May, in early May, I was heading into downtown Miami. I was on a major highway. It's 8-lane, 4 lanes each way. And all of a sudden, I was listening to an interview on the radio. And all of a sudden, I wasn't in my car. I was just mind. It was just my mind. Mm-hmm. And then just my consciousness, I should say. Mm-hmm. And then there was nothingness around me. It was like total darkness. There was nothing. And then all of a sudden, little by little, I'm inside a huge, gigantic wheel. Gigantic wheel. Like if you could imagine a Ferris wheel, now imagine 10 times a Ferris wheel, the size of a Ferris wheel. You're in the center of it, the fulcrum, and you're looking outward. And it had various spokes, like a cart, the Ferris wheel. And then I saw videos inside each of the different spokes. And what each of these videos were what I call the contact modalities. In one section of the wheel was UFO contact experiences. Another section of the wheel was near-death experiences. Another one was out-of-body experiences. Another one was communication with ghosts and spirits. Another one was channeling. Another one was shamanic journeys, people that psilocybin, peyote, magic mushrooms. It was all the different ways that mystical meditation, people are meditating, all of a sudden they pop out of their body or they get brought somewhere. Remote viewing, all of the different ways that humans have pierced the veil and have had contact with non-human intelligence. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't a voice. It was just, I guess, like a download, straight information. Said that humans are studying all of these different ways that you are communicating with us. And you're studying them as very separate and distinct phenomena. But in fact, it's all one phenomenon. And it said that the glue that unites all of these different phenomena, which in fact is one phenomenon, humans are calling it consciousness. Mm-hmm. But in fact, what it is the very fabric of our reality. Wow. Okay. And then you need to, they gave me instructions of what I needed to do. Said you need to inform humanity of the relationship between us, whatever this intelligence is, the spirit world, and consciousness. You need to inform humanity of the relationship between us, the spirit world, and consciousness. Okay. And it said, you will need help. And there's 2 criteria for that help. This is not about you getting rich. And secondly, the people that will be helping you, these individuals have to be individuals with minimal ego. Mm-hmm. And then poof, I was back in the car listening to this radio interview that did not skip a beat. Okay, I was taken out of time because I remembered what this guy was saying. It was like he had paused in the middle of he was saying, and then when I was returned, he was continuing with that same sentence. But yet I was gone for 20 to 30 minutes.
Now that's amazing.
Well,
That's mind blowing.
that's not even the amazing part.
Okay.
The amazing part was what happened over the next 2 days. Okay. When I got home late that afternoon, I got an email from Mary Rodwell. Now, 6 months before, in October, I had sent emails to very famous names, people like Whitley Strieber, Grant Cameron, the late Stanton Friedman, who just passed away a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Very famous names in ufology. Just wanting to talk to somebody because I had no one to talk to. And so I think it was only Whitley Strieber and Grant Cameron responded back to my emails. So the email was from Mary Rodwell, and it said, "Dear Ray, I'm sorry I'm responding to an email that you had sent me 6 months ago, but I just received it today."
Wow.
Okay. So then I sent her an email back and I said, Mary, this is what's happened over the last 6 months, and this is what happened today. And so Mary said, "Oh my God, Ray, we need to talk. I mean, these are some heavy duty experiences," because I had sent her my diary where I'd kept notes of my experiences. And she saw that these were, major types of experiences. And she showed me how to use Skype. And we were on Skype for hours and hours. And it was like 1:30 in the morning, and we agreed to continue our discussions. So I asked her, I said, "Mary, how do you explain you getting in this email 6 months late?" And she says, "Ray, by now you ought to know what happened." Okay.
And it has to do with time being an illusion, and
it's that whatever this intelligence was,
mm-hmm.
remember I said that it has the ability to manipulate space-time, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it basically held that message up in cyberspace to this point to get Mary in contact with me, working with me. And for this reason, the instructions that I was given. Now, let me continue. The very next day at 9:30 in the morning, mind you, I had gone to sleep at 1:30 in the morning talking to Mary. So what Mary did is she sent Dr. Rudy Shields. Again, he is 79 years old now. Mm-hmm. He was a professor of astrophysics, just like Stephen Hawking, okay, mm-hmm. At Harvard University for over 45 years. Like Stephen Hawking, he was one of the world's leading experts on black holes. And he says that Stephen Hawking was totally wrong as to what black holes are. Okay. Rudy is extremely radical. He's way, way out there. He says that black holes are actually the source of Akashic records for each galaxy, because black holes are information storage devices.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And Edgar Mitchell was working with numerous Ph.D. physicists how our universe is filled with information. It's the universe literally is an information storage mm-hmm. device through 0-point energy. Okay. So anyway, that's how both of them got together. But to continue with the story, Mary had sent Rudy an email, okay, telling her of what had happened to me, and some of it involved some physics as well. So anytime Rudy gets an experiencer, Mary gets an experiencer that has physics downloads and deals with consciousness and cosmology, she sends it to Rudy. And then she says, "But wait till you contact that person, because I'm going to request their permission." So Mary had sent me an email requesting my permission, but I hadn't opened up that email yet. So Rudy jumped the gun. and at 9:30, he gives me a call. And he goes, "Hello, is this Rey Hernandez?" I said, "Yes, who's this?" He goes, "Dr. Rudy Shields." And I go, "Who? Oh, I apologize. Mary didn't let you know I was calling you?" "No." Oh, and then he explained who he is, right? And I said, "Why in the world is this Harvard professor of astrophysics calling me?"
Right.
And so what he told me was, he said, "Can I please explain what had happened to me and that story?" So then I explained it in detail, in much more detail than what I just told you, And so he says, "Ray, what you were given Dr. Edgar Mitchell's quantum hologram theory of consciousness, a theory that he'd been working on for over 25 years with numerous Ph.D. physicists around the world, including Rudy, including himself. And then he then went on to explain what that theory was. And Rudy's a highly technical person, and he explained it in a lot of physics laden, but he tried his best to explain it to me. But again, this is a PhD physicist trying to talk to you about an advanced theory of physics in a layperson's terminology. And so I understood some of it, but not all of it. And so then he said, "Look, Ray, you were given a mission. I'm here to help you." And I said, "But I have no idea what I'm supposed to do." And he says, "Well, just to let you know that I'm here to help you." And he says, "Write down this telephone number." And so I wrote down the number. And then he said, "This is the telephone number of my mentor." And I'm saying to myself, who in the hell could be this guy's mentor? This guy's like a Stephen Hawking, personality,
Right.
So I asked him, "Who's your mentor?" And then he goes, "Dr. Edgar Mitchell."
Wow.
Okay. For the folks that don't know, Edgar Mitchell was the sixth man to walk on the moon. He received a PhD in aeronautical engineering from MIT. He was the one that pretty much rescued Apollo 13. That was that Tom Hanks movie. I don't know if some of your listeners have seen that.
Yeah.
He said that he was three people in that movie. Okay. He won the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He had an experience in space, two major experiences. One was that he did an ESP test out in space, where he read out to himself, and he noted it down, these cards that they use for ESP experiments, and he had given to 5 separate individuals a packet saying what did they think came up in his cards. So then they would be matching, okay, let's say a 10 of diamonds, a jack of hearts, blah, blah, blah. And so he did that experiments, and when he got back, the statistical probabilities were, that yes, ESP occurred, okay, with high probabilities. And so another thing that happened to him in space is he had what is called a somatic experience, samadhi, where he was given an instant knowingness of everything. Okay, a lot of people have had out-of-body experiences. A lot of people have had near-death experiences. A lot of people that have had certain types of mystical meditations, all of a sudden you're given a flash of like universal knowledge, and then immediately gets taken away. With people that have had near-death experiences, that knowledge remained during your entire near-death experience. But when you get returned, all of a sudden you can't remember it. Okay. Well, same thing with Edgar. All of a sudden he knew that we were all interrelated, that we were one, that there was no separation of every little molecule in his body and the molecules in outer space. It was a very, very intense experience. And when he returned, he wanted to find out what the hell happened to him. And so he did a lot of research. And then this professor of religion said, look, a lot of individuals in ancient India described this experience called samadhi, where it's like this knowingness that we're all unified, that we're all one. And so he over about a year later, he started the Institute for Noetic Science in California. And now that institute is the world's leading academic research institute on consciousness and the ESP psi phenomena. Okay.
We were just talking about the Global Coherence Initiative. Isn't that also in Dr. Dean Radin? That's the same place, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Dean Radin is the lead scientist at IONS. He's an advisor to Free from the very beginning. And that's the institute that Edgar started. Okay.
Amazing.
So just for folks to know, also Edgar is the father of the modern UFO disclosure movement, because there were only a few astronauts that talked about UFOs, he and Gordon Cooper. But Edgar, from the very beginning, when he returned from the moon, okay, shortly thereafter, he began to talk to a lot of people. And then finally he went public all over the world about the UFO contact phenomenon. So Edgar was was, uh, was so undermined by a lot of folks that they just think that he's just, the sixth man to walk on the moon. No, no, no. Edgar pretty much is the father of modern consciousness studies. And so anyway, I called Edgar up later that afternoon. I waited for hours because I was totally scared of who he was. Very famous individual.
Mm-hmm.
And so he picks up the phone. He says, I've been waiting for your phone call. And what he had told me was that Rudy and he had a very extensive conversation about my experience. And he says, what are you doing tomorrow at 10 o'clock? He says, well, I don't have any plans. He says, would you like to come over my house? Rudy told me that you live in Miami. Is that correct? And I said, yes. He said, well, that's only 90 minutes away from me. He says, can you be here tomorrow at 10? I said, it would be in my honor. And so the next day, mind you, this is 2 days later after my experience where I went out of body into that matrix reality. Okay. 2 days later, I was at Edgar's home. Okay. At Edgar's home, I was there 6 hours. Subsequently, I was at his home more than 20 times. Edgar became very good friends. And he became a founder of our organization. So after 6 hours, he had told me pretty much his whole lifestyle. I then began to tell him about my experiences. And I later found out that Edgar had been listening and communicating with hundreds of experiencers. And that's something that a lot of people don't know about. That Edgar was very, very much into the experiencer contact phenomenon. And what a lot of people don't know was that Edgar also co-founded this organization called Eternia, which focused on near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, and spirituality. Okay, so Edgar was a very, very complex man. So towards the end of my conversations with Edgar at his home, he says, look, Ray, Rudy and I already discussed it. We will be your scientific advisors. Okay. I said, but Edgar, I have no idea what the hell I'm going to be doing. He says, don't worry. It works you'll figure it out. It always works that way. So I'm like saying, what the hell is he talking about? And so later on, when I got home from Edgar's visit, I contacted Mary. We got on Skype. And I said, look, Mary, these two geniuses want to be my scientific advisors. They want to help me out, but I have no idea what the hell I'm going to be doing. I said, would you like to join us for whatever we're going to be doing? And she joined in. She said she would love to. She knew Rudy, but she never met Edgar. And now, mind you, Mary, I only met her 2 days before, and that was through Skype. I never had talked to her at all. So anyway, a week later, I woke up and I knew I had a download. I woke up with what we were going to be doing for the research study. And what happened was that I was saying to myself, I said, look, all of these contact modalities, they're all interrelated. It all has one common denominator, that it involves manipulation of space-time. But what was happening to my wife and I, the UFO contact phenomenon, I went to Berkeley for a Ph.D. I was an academic professor for 6 years. I conducted what is called an academic literature review. That means what has been written academically about the UFO contact phenomenon. And what did I discover? Almost nothing. Almost nothing. So how can we compare individuals that have had UFO-related contact phenomenon with near-death experiencers, with out-of-body experiencers, with people that have undertaken shamanic journeys, people that have had encounters with ghosts and spirits, with people that have undertaken remote viewing, how can we compare all of these people with the UFO contact phenomenon if we know almost nothing about the UFO contact phenomenon? Because nothing has been written academically, almost nothing about this phenomenon. So I then went back to Edgar and Rudy and Mary with a detailed description of what I wrote out. I woke up on a Saturday morning, and it was all in my head on a Saturday morning. So I wrote out all the details of an academic research study of the UFO contact phenomenon. And I sent it to them. They all loved it. They said, Ray, you finally got it. You got your information of what you need to do. We're going to help you. We're on board. And then within a couple of days, we had Dr. John Klimo, who was a retired academic professor of psychology. He was one of the few tenured faculty members that studied the paranormal. There are not too many professors that get tenure studying the paranormal, and Dr. John Klimo was one of them. He's written about near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, UFO contact, consciousness, and his most popular book was a book titled Channeling that was written into 18 languages. So he became the chair of this research committee. I was the co-chair. And over time, we brought in numerous individuals, people like Dr. Bob Davis, who's a retired professor of neuroscience, Dr. Kenneth Ring assisted us, Dr. Dean Radin, Dr. Claude Swanson, a retired, Claude Swanson, Ph.D. in physics from Princeton University, and he's written several books on the paranormal and all of the contact modalities. And then we brought in researchers like Leo Sprinkle, Barbara Lamb, Kathy Martin, Denise Stoner, and obviously Mary Rodwell, and many, many others. And we began this research study. So this research study and that book that you're holding, Sherry, was orchestrated by non-human intelligence over a 2-day period.
That is so cool to see it all come together like that in this supernatural way, really. And a lot of people experience these, what they call synchronicities, of just things just lining up in such a perfect way. I really want to, I do want to warn you guys, I'm in Tulsa, and it sounds like it sounds like it's getting bad out there. So if I disappear, I do apologize. But I do want to get into some of the percentages, what the research shows, and some of the ones that just the main ones that are sort of surprising.
Well, let me inform you that we did this survey in multiple languages. What I'm going to talk about is just the English language survey. We wound up with more than 4,145 individuals from more than 100 countries. Okay, so this is not just a little Mickey Mouse study. Okay, thousands of people from more than 100 countries, and our research findings totally contradict what is circulating in ufology. Let me highlight the 4 major findings. Okay, number 1, these experiences were overwhelmingly positive experiences. Number 2, these experiences involved in a positive transformation of the experiencer. It's a total transformation of the personality profile of the individual. And I'm going to go into details for each of these. Number 3, these experiences, while they were physical experience to them, these experiences were primarily paranormal. You might have seen a physical being, you might have seen a UFO, okay? But 95% of your experiences were paranormal. But yet, ufology is totally clueless about this. Mainstream materialist ufology. But for the experiencer, you talk to any major experiencer, and they'll tell you, "Oh yeah, I live in a paranormal reality." But that's the difference between being an experiencer and being someone in a materialist mainstream ufology organization. No, I apologize. Number 4, these experiences involve a manipulation of space-time. And that leads to the hypothesis that these experiences might be interdimensional. Why? Because there's a manipulation of space-time. It doesn't deal just with our reality. Okay. Now, let me go over, if you don't mind, the first of the major findings, the positive, negative, or neutral aspect of the questioning. In any type of survey, depending how you ask the question, you're going to get a different response. So we ask questions regarding, was your experience positive or negative or neutral, in over 40 different questions. Okay. And let me just give you an example of just a few of these questions. Okay. We asked the question, a very, very simple question. How would you describe your experiences? Was it positive, negative, or neutral? Okay. Well, guess what? Positive was 66%. Neutral was 29%. Negative was 5%. Again, this is not something that mainstream ufology knows about. Okay. Now, we also asked that question, positive, negative, or neutral, for up to 12 different types of beings. Okay. Physical beings. We asked it, we had numerous categories. The number one type of category that people saw, what is called an energy being. Okay, that was at 55%. Human-looking being was at 52%. The short grays, these are 3 to 4 feet tall, with the big head and the bulging eyes, that was at 51%. The ghost or the spirit form was at 47%. The tall grays, and they can be described from 5 feet to 9 feet tall, that was at 33%. People saw them. The reptilians was at 25%, and the insectoid or the praying mantis type was at 21%. Now, many people saw more than one type of being. That's why you had all these numbers don't add up to 100. Plus, we had other types of categories of beings which are not included. I just included the main ones. Now, these are a hell of a lot of people. For example, the energy being was 1,305. The human-looking being was 1,195 people that saw these beings. For the short grays, for example, it was 1,173 people. So David Jacobs, for example, at most, he only worked with 200 people doing his hypnotic regression. Okay. And again, that's not scientific research. Here we have 1,173 people from all around the world. Okay. Now, let's look at the percent that viewed their experiences as negative. The energy being, only 7%. Human looking being, only 5%. The short gray, what would you guess people stated that their experiences were negative for the short grays? Sherry?
Oh, you're muted, Sherry.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was
for the short grays, what percentage would you think people said that their experiences were negative?
Maybe, well, I mean, like, from what I know, I would say maybe like 15.
Okay, well, you're close. You're
Really?
close. 11% said that their experiences were negative. Okay, that's it, 11%. But if you go to the internet,
I'll be right back, you guys. Sherry, hold it down for me. We got tornado sirens, and I got to calm the family down. I'll be right back.
Okay, all right. Wow, we're in the middle of a tornado. You know, Sherry, it's 11%. But if you go to the internet, or if you go to these UFO conferences, you would think would be almost 100%.
Right.
Okay? Yeah. And the ghosts and spirits was 7%. The tall grays was 12%. Even the evil, dreaded reptilian. What would you think would be the people that said that their experiences with these evil, dreaded reptilians were negative?
I would think that would be high, a little bit higher, maybe like 32%.
Okay, no. It's you're in the ballpark. It's 23%.
Okay.
One out of every 5 people.
But they put out so much stuff that's negative about them. You know what I'm saying?
Correct. Now, 60% of the people said that it was neutral. Their experiences were neutral, just like the short grays. 60% of the short grays, 60% of the 1,173 people said it was neutral. For the reptilians, it wasn't like 1 or 2 or 3 people had reptilian experience. No, it was 644 people, Sherry. That's a hell of a lot of people. Okay.
Mhm.
So for most people, it was neutral, these experiences. Okay. Now, when we went on phase three of our research study was not quantitative in nature. This is where people got to write out the details of their experiences. When we looked at the people that had reptilian experiences, it wasn't that the reptilian ate their spouse or ate their children or raped their spouse, or that Barack Obama was a reptilian and stuff like that. No, it was that people were physically scared about of how this being looked like. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Because I
If,
had one little reptilian experience, which I'm
yeah.
going to tell you about later. Because but it wasn't really scary. It was just kind of weird. Most of my experiences have been positive. Go ahead.
No, was it negative, that experience with the reptilian? Or was it
Um,
neutral, or was it positive?
uh,
How would you describe your experience? Was it positive, negative, or neutral?
I was fearful at first, and then and then I was comforted right after it happened by like some kind of light language or something was like done in my ear. It
Okay.
almost seemed angelic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's exactly what a lot of people said, that they were frightened because of what it looked like.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
wasn't that it did anything bad to them, because for most of these people, these reptilians were, 7 to 8 feet tall. They were 400 to 500 pounds. They looked like a bodybuilder on steroids with a crocodile head, green color and a little slit for the eyes. So people are going to be totally traumatized by that. But yet it was only 23%. And it wasn't that the being did something, they were just scared shit, by seeing this. So, but again, this is what the internet does to misinform people,
Right.
and disinform in these conferences. Now, we also asked the question, if you could stop your ET contact experiences, would you? 84% said no. Keep it coming, baby. Keep it coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of our group would be the same way here. We're like hoping for contact. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Well, if this was such a bad and horrible experience, why did 84% said keep it coming, baby? We also asked this question: do you believe that ET or non-human intelligence are bad, malevolent, or evil? 91% said no, they're not. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, overall, as I was saying before, initially, 37% of these individuals viewed their experiences as negative in the very beginning. But then what we discovered was that over time, individuals kept on getting experiences. And these experiences over time, people were not scared anymore. And then all of a sudden, because they weren't scared, they were then allowed other types of experiences. At the very end, just like Whitley Strieber, these experiences became spiritual. Okay. Whitley Strieber says he prays to God. And he says, thank God that he brought me these entities, because it taught me, gave me spirituality. And now I'm communicating with my dead wife. I'm communicating with angels and spirits.
Mm-hmm.
This is Whitley Strieber, the person that everyone viewed, their experiences as totally horrific. Okay. But
Mm-hmm.
Whitley Strieber is the classic case of the experiencer that took our survey. Okay. Someone
Mm-hmm.
that's been totally and completely transformed. Now, talking about transformation, let's get into the transformation type of questions. Okay. As I said before, contact resulted in a positive transformation of the experiencer. We borrowed close to 60 questions from a survey that Dr. Kenneth Ring, he's one of the world's leading NDE researchers in the world. And he did a study back in 1986, which he published in a book titled The Omega Project: Near-Death Experiences, UFO Encounters at Large. So this is Dr. Kenneth Ring. He's now retired. And so in that book, we borrowed 60 questions from his research study. And these are how these people change. How were you before and how are you after? So we asked these questions. How did ET contact change your life? Was it highly positive, slightly positive, neutral, slightly negative, highly negative? And overall, what we found was that positive effect on their life was 73%.
Right.
So neutral was 17%. So those people that are mathematicians out there, 17 plus 73, that's 90%. Okay. Now slightly negative was 6%. Okay. And highly negative was only 4%. Okay. So overwhelmingly, these experiences were positive. Now, when we asked that question, did ET contact experience change your life in a negative or a positive way? And if so, how much? What we found out, well, I already answered that question. I apologize. Overall, between 73% and 85% of the experiencers underwent a profound psychological profile change for the positive. Now, let me go over some of these questions. What I'm going to go over now is increased. Okay. And the question started since I first became interested in my UFO experience. Okay. And I'm just going to focus on increased. My desire to help others, my compassion for others, my appreciation of the ordinary things of life, my sensitivity to the suffering of others, my concern with spiritual matters, my desire to achieve a higher consciousness, my appreciation of nature, my spiritual feelings, my concern with the welfare of the planet, my understanding of what life is all about, my personal sense of purpose in life, my concern with ecological matters. Now let's look at what decreased. Okay. My concern with material things.
I bet fear of death.
That's another one right here. It was 73% said my fear of death has decreased. Okay. My competitive tendencies, my interest in organized religion, my desire to become a well-known person. Again, I'm just highlighting a few of these. We asked over 60 questions, but basically what you get is you get a little worm that starts off, and at the end, you get a butterfly. Okay. You get someone that you would want to be your spouse, someone that you would want to be your best friend, someone that you would want your child to turn out to be, someone that's very spiritual, not materialistic, not competitive, that doesn't fear death, someone that appreciates nature and ecology, someone that knows what life is all about, a purpose in life. They have a purpose in life. They want to help others. They have compassion for others. They appreciate the ordinary things of life. They're much more spiritual person. So if this intelligence were to do that all around the world, you would not have war. You would not have famine. Okay. You would not have people ripping each other off. Okay. So again, no one knows this, Sherry. No one knows this. They need to know this.
Right.
The experiencer, you know it. You know it because you changed that way. Okay. And I don't even know you. I just know if you're an experiencer and you've had these paranormal experiences, you change that way. Okay.
Just like you mentioned, you were an atheist at one point.
That's correct.
So you were an atheist.
Correct. It was through a series of near-death related type of experiences, which is a very lengthy story, which I won't tell you. But this is all orchestrated by this non-human intelligence. Okay. It's a crazy story, but it's a fact. Okay. Now let's get into the third major finding. UAP contact experiencers have had primarily paranormal and not physical contact experiences with non-human intelligence, either before or after the sighting of a UAP. Okay. Again, they might have seen a short gray. They might have seen a UFO or several UFOs. Okay. Or they might have seen more than one physical type of being. But once you add up all of their experiences, you realize that the vast majority of the experiences were paranormal in nature. The UFO, the NDE, the OBE triggers the paranormal. Okay? Triggers the paranormal. That's why they're all interrelated. Many people, in fact, most people have had more than one of these experiences. Let me go into detail. Did you guys realize that 95% of the people that took our survey stated that they had paranormal experiences in their home? Okay.
I would believe that.
Okay. 80% stated that they have had an out-of-body experiences. 8 out of 10 people that took our survey. Yes, I had an out-of-body experience. 37% had a near-death experience. Now, here's the kicker that mainstream ufology definitely does not understand nor accept. 50% stated that non-human intelligence has performed a medical healing on them or a member of their family. That's one of the chapters in our survey. Okay,
including
chapter
pets,
6,
as you mentioned earlier,
including our dog. Correct. So that chapter was written by a retired medical doctor, an experiencer, Dr. Joseph Burks, and Preston Dennett, who just recently publicized a book that detailed 300 cases of medical healings by UFO intelligence. 300 cases. Well, we documented 50% of the people. Okay. Now let's get into some of the details. As I said, 80% had an OBE. We had 37% had an NDE. 50% had a medical healing. Now let's get into some of these other paranormal type of experiences. Telepathic communication. Sherry, you just talked about that you received that, right?
Yes. Yes. I will.
Have you had it more than once?
Yes.
Okay, well, join the club. 78% of the people that took our survey, almost 8 out of 10, said they had a telepathic communication or thought transference or direct knowing being given to you by an ET or non-human intelligence. Okay, now here's another question. Have you had contact with non-human intelligence in a matrix reality like I had? I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only person out there. Well, guess what?
In another realm, right?
In another realm, yeah. Which we defined it in our survey, matrix reality. So, well, guess what? 50% of the people said, yes, I had contact with non-human intelligence in a matrix reality. 50%. Have you ever had a past life memory? For example, memory of your consciousness in a previous life. 66%. Have you ever seen what can be described as a ghost or a spirit? 76%. Isn't that huge?
Yeah.
76% of the people said, yes, I have seen a ghost or a spirit. Do you have memories of you visiting or receiving a glimpse of heaven or what can be called the spirit world? 46%. Again, mainstream ufology would have a heart attack. Okay. They say, oh, that's woo-woo stuff. That's love and light crowd. That's metaphysics. No, it's not fucking, excuse me. This is not metaphysics. Right. This is not metaphysics. This is pure academic research, what you at mainstream ufology have never even bothered to undertake. Okay. Have you ever seen small colored orbs? 67%. Have material objects mysteriously appeared right in front of you or other members of your family? That's called aports, APORTS, if it's more than one. 25%. 1 out of every 4 people have had material objects mysteriously appear right in front of them. Okay. My wife had it. My best friend, Alberto, here in Miami, has a whole shelf of aports. A whole shelf.
I have a friend that dreams about relatives that have died, and then she'll wake up and there's stuff in her bed from them.
Okay, that's an aport. Okay. It's 25%. So it's very common, but people just don't talk about that because it's just really crazy, Have material objects ever fallen or suddenly moved around you or other members of your family without any reasonable explanation? 61%. Can you see or feel energy or auras around people? Well, 74% said yes. Isn't that something? Okay, 74% said yes. All right. It really is amazing. Hold on a second while I make a correction here on my hold on a second.
Now, while you're doing that, to chime in on one of the statistics that we actually mentioned earlier, that less people had a physical and more people had an actual consciousness I don't like to use the word abduction, but their consciousness was taken rather than their body. Is there anything in your research that indicates why some are physical and some are consciousness only?
Well, even abductions, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I would dare to say that most abductions are consciousness. It's not
Mm-hmm.
their body.
They just don't know the difference because
They
it's
just
so
don't know the
similar.
difference. Correct.
Right. Or if it
Correct.
has something to do with the healing, maybe they need to take the human, the vessel, if you will, to perform the healing on it or something.
Correct.
Possibly,
Correct.
right?
Correct. It's just something that we just don't understand yet.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
there's if anybody comes across like they have all the answers to this phenomenon, run away. Okay, because now we're just starting to understand what questions to ask, let alone what answers. There are no answers. This is the world's biggest jigsaw puzzle. It's so extremely complex. Okay, but
And really, you guys just started putting it together. I mean, it's they
yeah,
haven't even approached it this way.
yeah. Other type of paranormal experiences. 47% have met and conversed with a deceased person, a ghost. Not only have seen it, they've met and conversed with that ghost. 47%. 49% have had their body out in space, like they're leaving the planet Earth. Okay. 29% have channeled a non human intelligence. Okay. 47% have seen what is considered shadow people in their homes. These are beings that look cloudy and human like that streak across the home. Let me just tell you a story. I was on a Skype call with two volunteers for free. One individual lives in Canada, the other one in Massachusetts. And all of a sudden, this dark, shadowy streak, like a human silhouette, flashes right behind me. I can see because I've got my camera on, for the three of us. And so I didn't even blink an eye, right? One of the ladies there starts screaming, "Ah! Ray, is that what I thought I saw?" I said, "Yeah, it's just a shadow person, chill out, But it went right through the glass window, And so 40% have seen orbs. Out of those 40% that have physically seen an orb, not through a little picture, you take a photo and you get an orb. No, physically seen an orb. Out of those 40%, 66% said that it was in their house. 46% saw the orb go through an object, such as a wall, just like that shadow person go through the window. 82% believe that these orbs are conscious beings. Now, information received. Do we still have time? We can go over that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We asked the question, did you receive any type of communication with non-human intelligence? Well, remember, out of those 4,200 people, 80% said yes. Okay. Now let's take a look at that. This is 75% said it was communication in the, was it communication in the native language? 75% said yes. I'm just going to go through the yes. Did they impart reassuring messages to you? 61% said yes. Like you did, Sherry, like happened to you.
Yeah.
Did they provide you with a spiritual message? 54%. Again, mainstream ufology, for all these questions to say, oh, this is woo-woo science. This is not what UFOs are supposed to do. These are evil, dreaded, beings. Well, 54% of them gave you a spiritual message. Did they give you a message of love or oneness? 54%. Did they express to you concern about humanity's behavior? 45%. Do you believe you possess information about advanced technology, advanced physics, or other scientific information that you've never read or learned in your normal environment? 42%.
I think they would trust me with that.
Tons of people have gotten downloads of science and physics. Okay. And I could give you tons of stories. There's two people. One was my best friend, Alberto, and this other man who is a child prodigy, mathematician and physicist. Both of them saw like a big, gigantic Apple tablet appeared holographically right in front of them. Okay. Both of them had these physics equations scroll down. Okay. The person who was the child prodigy in math and physics, he understood it. My friend Alberto, after like a half hour of these things scrolling down, he says, "Screw this shit, I'm leaving." Because and I say, "Alberto, what are you crazy? You just left in the middle of this thing?" He says, "Ray, I was bored. I didn't understand what the hell was going on."
That'd be
And,
me.
and his wife was next to him, like, "Alberto, ask it questions. Tell it what it wants. Tell it, because his wife is also a major experiencer too. She's a PhD psychologist, the wife,
Mhm.
but she couldn't see it. It was only for Alberto. And so, but this couple of, they've had thousands. They are by far the world's major experiencers. Alberto by far is the number one contactee in the world. No one's
That's
comes
so
close
cool.
to this man. And is it a coincidence that this man is my best friend?
That,
Okay.
that's so awesome.
E-
Yeah.
every 2 weeks we go out to lunch. Wednesday we're going to go out to lunch. I just talked to him today. So I mean, but yet he doesn't want his story public. I did do a little video interview of him, and I put it in on YouTube. He didn't have a problem with that, but it just doesn't want to go publicly to tell his story. But
Yeah.
maybe I could send both of you the YouTube that I did of he and his wife. I mean, you
Oh,
guys
that's
will
awesome.
you guys will freak out.
Yeah,
uh,
I've had a lot of experience myself. I wanted to tell you
yeah,
my UFO story because it's
yeah,
really short. So I was in my swimming pool, like all by myself, and over the rooftop came this 4.5 by 5 foot. It was cream colored, opaque. It was a ball, and it had a fire burning in the center of it. And
yeah.
it looked like a campfire with no wood, and everything was dead silent. And it came down, and it was right in front of my face, and it stayed right there. And if I put out my arm, I could touch the edge of the pool. And then another, like, less than an arm length, I could have touched it. I
Wow.
wasn't afraid at all. I was kind of just like, oh, I mean, I felt like Moses seeing a burning bush or something, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
tried to holler for somebody, and I was trying to, just get a witness, and nothing was coming out. But then all of a sudden, my daughter came home from where she was at with her boyfriend, and she walked up and she was like, she knows me so well because we both have experiences, and she was like, "Mom, I'm right behind you, and I see it too."
Okay,
And
beautiful. Wow, that was meant for you and your daughter. You know that.
I
There's
do
no
know that
there's
because
no coincidences. These are
then,
orchestrated events.
yes, and then it floated up above my shed, and then it shot up in the sky, and within 1 second it disappeared like an orange star.
Wow.
And what's really weird is this: for months we would talk about it, and her boyfriend would be right there. And one day he just pipes up and he goes, I, I don't know why y'all are saying it was so big, because I saw it, but it was a small orange thing back in the tree line. So see, it wasn't, his perception was totally different. And we all saw this, like,
Yeah.
so that's, and since then, well, even before that, since like 2012 up until now, I've had multiple experiences, and like I fit in every category that you list except the shamanic journey one, probably, but all of the rest.
You take some ayahuasca and then you'll check that box off too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's happening to thousands of people all over the world, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe millions. We just don't know. But all I know is that a couple of weeks ago, I gave a presentation at the Ozarks UFO conference, and oh my God, I met several ladies. These are some of them middle aged, some of them were older, retired folks that have had some hell of a story. I mean, like exactly what you're just saying. Tons of paranormal experiences. They might have seen a UFO. They did see UFO. They did see beings, but their life is basically, it's a paranormal reality. And
That's
so,
how mine is.
yeah. And so, I mean, one is a medical doctor. Another lady, very bright, coherent, articulate. One was in the early 60s. The other one was, I would say, mid 70s. You know, wonderful individuals. There's another woman who pops out of her body at will, out of body experiences. They were all at my table. I mean, imagine
That's
all the other
amazing.
tables, that people were at. So, yeah, I mean, Sherry, it's like join the club. You're not alone. There's literally, hundreds of people that have taken our survey that have had thousands of people, I should say, that have checked off all these boxes.
I wanted to chime in right there
Yeah.
and ask you: is it possible that people have had abduction experiences and don't remember it if they've checked off all those other boxes on there?
Well, let's
sounds
go.
like it would probability would go up, doesn't it?
Yeah, let's go. I mean, let me finish these messages that people were getting, and then I could go into the abduction stuff. Let me see. Were you given an environmental message regarding Earth? Most of the people is that, look, we're destroying our planet. You know, there's not a lot of time. You guys need to take action. 39%, 4 out of 10 people were given that type of a message. Did they give you a message about God or a creator? 31%. Did they ever tell you a message about parallel universes? 31%. And all of these were pretty much between 30 to 27%. They gave you information about the death process, about life or the spirit world, what life was like on the other side, you know, the spirit world. 30%. Well, let me about the concept of time. Communication concerning life after physical death, your mission here on Earth, science information that was not physics based. Did they tell you where they are from? Did they tell you why you were targeted for contact? Did they give you information that they were upgrading the human DNA? Did they have some type of an agreement with you? Did they tell you about that agreement? Did they give you messages about reincarnation? Did they provide you information? Did they tell you that you are either an actual ET or a part ET? Okay, all of those questions were between 30 to 26%. And there were many, many other questions. Now, you had asked me a question about the abduction phenomena. Let me go over some of the abduction questions, and then we could address any questions related to that, because that's what most people hear about this phenomenon. They hear about the abduction stuff. They don't know anything else that I just talked about. Why? Because no one has ever studied. Okay. We asked a question. Have you ever had ET contact, but have no conscious recollection of ever being abducted, which is defined as taken against your will to another location? In other words, you have had contact with non-human intelligence. You have seen UFOs, but you have no recollection of ever being abducted. 68%. Okay. So I would put myself in that category, and my wife would certainly put herself in that category, even though she was taken, but she just doesn't know. Okay, so that should address your question. There are a lot of people that have had missing time. Okay, they just don't know what happened to that time. Okay, like in my case, I was brought to another reality. I don't consider that a typical standard abduction that people associate with it. Okay,
Right.
I was taken against my will, but I wasn't taken like what David Jacobs says, you know, to create hybrid babies and shit like that. No, you know, it was a very, very different experience. And again, my perspective is David Jacobs. He's only interviewed 200 people. That's it. And then there's several videos that we have of him where he's interviewing people, and it was like tons of leading questions, one on top of another. There was one lady, as a matter of fact, that had a reptilian experience that he starts telling her that, a couple of weeks ago, this lady came with had a reptilian story and told this lady all these horrors. Okay. So naturally, when he goes to interview this lady, what the hell is she going to get from her? You know, it's like one horror story after another. Now, we asked that question, the opposite question. Have you had ET contact, but you also consciously remember that you were also abducted, which is defined as taken against your will to another location? So in other words, you have seen a UFO, okay? You've had ET contact, but you were abducted, 34%, okay? So now, what we discovered of these 34%, okay, 70% of these people now don't call themselves abductees. They call themselves contactees, okay? 35% view themselves as being a case of a conscious contactee, an egalitarian and equal relationship. Another 35% said, I'm not an abductee, but a contactee where you're being treated with respect and understanding. Okay. Almost 9% said it was a case of an abduction, but where they sought my permission. I was treated with humane, compassionate treatment. So right now we've got 70 plus another 9%, 79%. Okay. Now, 13% said it was a case of an abduction, but a milder kind, a slightly more caring kind, 13%. And now we get to the people that are most traumatized. 8% said it was a case of an abduction of the most negative kind. Okay. But what did we discover? Those people that said it was an abduction of the most negative kind originally was 18%. When they described their first few experiences. But that changed to 8% in the last few contact experiences. Okay. So it is a big 10% shift that occurred. Also, the case of abduction of a milder kind, a slightly more caring kind, that went from 18.5% to 13%. So again, that was 5.5% that decreased. So what these trends are showing is that initially approximately 36%, 37% of the people view their experiences as mainly negative. But then over time, only 8% viewed their abduction as mainly negative. So it's a big shift.
Well, it's just so scary when at first, because you're like kind of shocked, and then as time goes on, you start seeing, oh, okay, you know what I mean?
Yeah, correct. Now, the people that only had, let's talk about how many times. We asked the question, how many times have you seen or interacted with these ETs or non-human intelligence? Okay, once was only 14%. That's it. Between 2 to 4 times was, an additional 22%. Okay, so between 1 time to 4 time was 36%. So that means, 64% had more than 4 types of contact experiences.
Yeah, but if it's not like paranormal, that would be like way higher for me. I'm talking about actual.
Correct. Well, now we've got more than 20 times was one of the categories. Okay, that would be you, right? More than 20 times?
Well, yeah, with paranormal stuff.
Okay, well, that's non-human intelligence. Okay?
Right. Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, if you've seen and interacted with a non-human intelligence, not just that some paranormal shit happened in your house, but that like a ghost or a spirit or an entity, that sort of thing. Well, 40% of these individuals, 40%, said more than 20 times, okay, that they have seen or interacted with an ET or a non-human intelligence. Okay, 40%. That's a ton of people. That means they're living a paranormal type of experience. Okay. What we also looked at, we did a bar graph that showed how many types of experiences you had with how positive it was. So we found out was that the more experiences you had, the more positive that effect changed your life. Okay. So the more experiences you had, those are the people that said, yes, it had a positive effect in changing my life. Okay. In summary, 68% of individuals have seen a UFO and have had contact with non-human intelligence, but have not had an abduction. 32% have had an abduction. Of those that were abducted, 71% now call themselves contactees and not abductees. And then the other percent were more like neutral type of experiences, except for 8%. It was only 8% that said it was an abduction of the most negative kind. Okay. Also, what we discovered was that 30% of the people that have had an abduction, 30% are MILABs, where humans abducted them. Okay. Thus 30% of the abductees are MILAB abductees. Okay. It was 489 people that had abductions. Out of those, 146 said they had a MyLab. Okay.
Which is a military abduction.
Correct. Yeah. So when people refer to what we're doing as abduction research, even Whitley Strieber said Rey Hernandez, an abduction researcher. Okay. First of all, it's not Rey Hernandez. It's an entire organization filled with mainly academic PhDs and researchers in the field. That's number one. Secondly, what we discovered that the abductees was only 1/3 of the people. That's it. So by calling what we were doing abduction research, you're missing 2/3 of the people. Okay, you're missing 2/3 of the people. That's how totally clueless, these materialist mainstream ufology are. So if Whitley Strieber was able to make that mistake, imagine all these other people that run these UFO conferences. They're totally clueless. Okay, now let's talk about contact to a matrix reality. Okay, which involves a manipulation of space-time. We had 749 individuals that were brought to a matrix reality versus 489 people that had an abduction. Okay, why don't we talk about these ufologists talk about people that have been brought to a matrix reality? Why is there only focuses on abduction? Okay, why? Because the data was never there. Okay, the researchers, Mary Rodwell knew about it, Kathy Martin knew about it, Whitley Strieber knew about it, Edgar Mitchell knew about it, Dr. John Mack knew about it, Jacques Vallée knows about it. Okay, but it's never discussed in ufology. Why? Because it's so way out there, so paranormal, involving the manipulation of space-time. Okay, and in such a case of high strangeness, they rather avoid it, not talk about it. Okay, well, what we discovered was that 584 people saw different types of beings in a matrix reality. And can I play for you what Dr. Jacques Vallée stated about this phenomenon?
Absolutely.
Okay, let me see if it's not too loud.
I think that...
Oh, let me turn it off. I apologize, because it's almost 11 o'clock and my wife is probably in bed upstairs. And very soon, if I would have played that loud, she would have been banging on the floor, Tell me to shut up. Tell me to shut up.
She's spicy, Ray.
But to get back to the positive and the negative thing, I can see how the MyLabs or military abductions would account for some of them, but I think some of them might just be perspective, right? Because here we have Eileen and her sister. That's my co-host for Saturday. One views it as positive, one views it as negative. So it's like.
What we found out was that the key factor there was how many experiences they had. If someone only had one or two, then they would view it as negative.
Oh, okay.
But if someone has had repeat experiences, what we found out was that these repeat experiences changed. Okay, for many people, they got to have positive experiences with these entities, and like I said before, we had close to 250 people actually got to drive the UFO craft, and
awesome.
And so these are out of 489 people that had abductions. And then a lot of these people were brought to these matrix realities. They had encounters with energy beings, with human-looking beings. They were given spiritual messages, like I just read before. So, but again, if someone only had one abduction or two abductions, and that's it, and they've never had any additional type of experience, they're going to be the most traumatized. Now, I could go into all these questions about what the experience was like in a matrix reality, but to summarize, if anyone has ever watched that Jodie Foster movie, Contact, have you guys ever seen it?
I didn't see it. I stopped watching movies for a while, and I'm trying to go back and catch up. So,
but this is old. I think it's like 25 years old. That movie. It's a classic case of someone being brought to a matrix reality. And let me just go over it very quickly. These are the categories. Yes, were you physically present in your body? 61%. Was your consciousness separated from your body? 67%. Again, that shows the contradiction that we were talking about earlier. Remember, how do you
Right.
describe these experiences? Because you can describe it both that you're in your body, but your
You're out of your
consciousness,
body.
yeah, your consciousness is out of your body. It's
Yeah.
you can't really describe it in words, you know. So did thoughts speed up? 57% said yes. I'm just going to say how many said yes. Were your senses more vivid than usual? 76%. Did you feel separated from your body? 53%. Did you have a feeling of peace or pleasantness? 73%. Did you see or feel surrounded by a brilliant light? 52%. Did you encounter a mystical being, a presence? 79%. Did you, again, 8 out of 10 people saying that I encountered this mystical being or presence, or I heard a voice? It was 79%. Did you see deceased or religious spirits? 37%. Did scenes from the past come to you? 27% had scenes from the past. Did you seem to encounter some other unearthly world? 70%. Did time seem to speed up or slow down? 76%. Did you feel a sense of harmony or unity with the universe? 69%. Did you suddenly seem to understand everything, like Edgar Mitchell?
And then forget it all later.
59%. Correct. 59%. Did scenes from the future come to you? 41%. And we broke those down. We had from your personal future was 10%. From the world's future was 31%. Okay. Did scenes from the past come to you? 31%. And we broke that down. From your personal past, 20%. From the world's past, 11%. So remember, I told you there's a manipulation of space-time. Not only do they bring you this reality, but they show you visions of the future and the past. Not only visions of your own past and your own future, but of the world's past and the world's future. Okay? Did the reality of this multidimensional experience seem real to you? 83.5% said yes, it seemed very real. Did you perceive that time did not exist? 71% said yes, time did not exist. Now, remember I mentioned the topic of spirituality, okay, and the spirit world, of the relationship between contact and the spirit world. Exactly what the message they gave me, okay? We asked numerous questions about that. Why? Because I had that experience, and because we knew that many individuals that are having contact experiences are getting spiritual messages, okay? So 97% believe that non-human intelligence can travel to other dimensions. 97%.
Yeah.
91% believe that there is some sort of a grand plan in motion, and that experiencers are all part of it. Okay, 91%. 89% believe that there is a connection between non-human intelligence and the paranormal. Again, 89%. 82.5% believe that there is a connection between non-human intelligence and the spirit world. Isn't that freaking crazy? This has nothing to do with mainstream ufology or abductions, these evil, dreaded little grays, you know. Here you are, a survey of 4,200 people from over 100 countries saying that they believe that 82% of these individuals believe that there's a connection between this non-human intelligence and the spirit world.
Yep.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Now, what the beings told them about spirituality. Okay. 31% were given a message about God. 30% were told by non-human intelligence about the death process, about the spirit world. 28% were told where they were from. 26% were given a message about reincarnation, that yes, reincarnation exists. Just like Dr. Raymond Moody, the founder of the term near-death experience, and the world's #1 researcher on near-death experiences, also not only believes, he knows about reincarnation. Dr. Jeffrey Long, again, a top researcher, academic researcher, professor of cancer, okay, about reincarnation. He believes in reincarnation. Why? Because the experiencers of NDEs have told him. Just like in our survey, 25% of non-human intelligence have told the experiencer about what is your mission here on Earth. 25% were shown how to do energy work. 25% were told that they at one time were one of them. 24% were told about their past lives. Okay? Now, some of the commonalities. That's the last topic I want to talk about. The commonalities between near-death experiences and what we call UAP. We don't use the term UFO. Okay? UFO contact experiences. So these are the commonalities. Okay?
UAP is unknown aerial phenomenon?
Unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Oh, okay.
The reason why we prefer the term UAPs instead of UFOs is because what the overwhelmingly majority of what people are seeing, they're not physical craft.
That'd be mine, like mine.
Correct.
I think it was a Merkabah.
Yeah. In my case as well, it was not physical craft. It was this huge pattern of oblong streaks of light, thousands of them, that formed the whole shell of this object, and thousands of stars that were blinking on and off. Okay, they weren't little stars, they were huge stars inside this object, and there was all this white plasma swirling around. So and then what people are seeing, the vast majority of them, is all different types of manipulations. Okay, for example, I have photos that people have taken of these orbs with crosses in them, tons of them.
Mhm.
Why? Because the person that took it believed in Catholicism. Okay, this other man, okay, I won't name him, but I was after he had started to see lots of UAPs in the sky. And then, like about a week later, he communicated with the first person, that was me, about his experiences. And I was telling him that my wife sees them as angelic because of her Catholic background. He went out that night and he took tons of pictures of these UAPs, and guess what they had in them? A cross.
Mhm.
Okay, and some of them had the face of a gray. Okay, so the cross and the face of a gray. Okay, so let me go over some of these commonalities. Number one, how does communication take place between NDE contact experiencers and UAP contact experiencers? In both, it's telepathic. Okay, and in both, it's in your native language. You could be, a native speaker of Swahili. If you have an NDE, you're going to be getting it in Swahili.
Mhm.
If you're having UFO contact experiences, you're going to be getting in Swahili. Okay. We had one of our surveys in Slovak. Imagine Slovak. That's not a very common language, but people were getting telepathic communications in Slovak.
Mhm.
Okay. Both of these experiences involve an out-of-body experience. Remember, I told you 80% of UAP contact experiencers have had out-of-body experiences. Energy beings, the #1 type of being seen in a near-death experience, and is an energy being and also a spirit being. Well, the energy being was #1 in our survey. The spirit beings were #4 at 47%. The energy beings were at 55%. Both of this phenomena involve medical healings. There are hundreds of NDE cases involving medical healings. The most famous case is Anita Morjani. Also,
Yeah, I know her story.
yep. Also, Dr. Eben Alexander, a ex-professor of Harvard Medical School. He was a brain surgeon. He had a miraculous medical healing where his brain was basically mush. Okay, but
Mhm.
he was able to actively communicate like 2 weeks after he was revived from his NDE. Okay, but yet his brain
Mhm.
was mush. Okay. Both of these experiences involve reincarnation. Both of them involve visions of the future. Remember what I read before?
Uh-huh.
Both of them involve visions of the past. Okay. For NDEs, it's life review. And for the ufology folks, it's mainly visions of ecology of our disastrous Earth, totally decimated by environmental pollution, by global warming, etc. Also, both experiences involve a total personality transformation. The person is totally transformed. And I went through that data. And that data was taken by an NDE researcher. So the same thing happens to NDE experiencers. Also, both experiences involve you being taken to a matrix reality. Also, upon your return from both experiences, involves precognition. Before we began to record, I told you about how my wife was returned. She disappeared. She had intense precognition skills. It lasted 2 years, but the first 9 months were really unbelievable. Where she knew I had a lump in my back, a tumor. She knew that our car was blown up. She knew when people were coming. Lo and behold, in 5 minutes, they're ringing on the doorbell. It's like you're talking to some lady with a crystal ball.
Right.
That was my wife. But yet, with near-death experiencers, the same thing happened. With goodness, what was his name? Brinkley, Damien Brinkley. Daniel Brinkley, correct. He talked about his friends were coming to his house to get the bets for the winning game, in football. Okay. And they were making a lot of money off of him. He also used to go to the racetrack and place money until he realized that, look, this is a special gift that he got.
Right.
And, he can't be doing this. And so, again, same thing with UFO contact experiences, precognition, extremely common. Paranormal experiences, both of them, upon their return, if you get brought to a matrix reality or if you have a close encounter with a non-human intelligence, also you return from an NDE, you return with tons of paranormal experiences, which involve also seeing ghosts of spirits. I think I told you about this doctor who had an NDE, a major NDE, near-death experience. And all of a sudden, in her hospital, she's seeing ghosts and spirits left and right, almost every day. Same thing with UFO contact experiencers. Also, both experiences have a manipulation of electronic devices. I heard a lecture of Dr. Bruce Grayson talking about individuals walking under a street lamp. All of a sudden, the street lamp would go on and they walk past it, will go off. All of a sudden, watches. They cannot wear electronic watches because they would break. I've got a lot of stories about that as well. Also, spiritual messages. I went over the spiritual messages that people are receiving. Same thing with the near-death experiences. Also, in both phenomenon involves the concept that consciousness is non-local, that consciousness is independent of our brain. Okay. Once you've had an out-of-body experience, you know that your brain is not who you are. Okay.
Right.
You know that there's something outside of your brain. So in both of these experiences involves the concept that consciousness is non-local. And again, it goes back to materialism. Most of mainstream ufology, they're materialists. Okay. Everything is focused and centers on the brain and on material reality. But yet, even from the time of Plato and from ancient India and all ancient historical civilizations, they knew that consciousness is non-local. It's independent of the brain. But yet, these folks are still fixated with nuts and bolts. They're going to remain clueless if that's their approach. Both of these concepts also involves a manipulation of space-time and also involves multi-dimensional reality. So these are just some of the comparisons. And this is where we need to do this comparative research. And then for your audience members, the name of our book, it's a 820-page book, is titled Beyond UFOs, The Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence. You could, if you're interested in purchasing it, you can find it on Amazon. Also, we are giving away for free chapter 1 of our book. And chapter 1 is the summary of what I just discussed, a much more detailed discussion. It's 120 pages, so it's a lot of detail, written by 3 academics. And all you need to do is send us an email. Our email is info@experiencer.org. info@experiencer.org. Also, we have a website where you could also download chapter 1 and several other chapters from our book. So our website is consciousnessandcontact.org. consciousnessandcontact.org. We also have a Facebook site where experiencers can communicate with each other. And the Facebook site is titled the Contact Modalities. The Contact Modalities, Consciousness and Contact. So it's the Contact Modalities, Consciousness and Contact. That's the Facebook site. We have 6,500 experiencers. And there, it's a site for you where experiencers can have intelligent conversations with each other. It's not this typical bullshit that you see on Facebook, on UFOs. This is contactees sharing their experiences in a very respectful way. So also, we're working on 2 new projects. Do you have any questions about the book before I get into the 2 new projects? You could download that, but also if you want to be put on your mailing list, I more than welcome emails. I get tons of emails all the time, people wanting to talk to me about their experiences. So the email is info@experiencer.org. And if you send us an email, you will be put on our mailing list. Okay. Now, we have 2 new projects. One is a documentary, and the other one is a new book. And both have the same title, tentative title. And the title is Beyond Materialism. Why did we use that term? Because our reality is beyond our material reality. We live in a consciousness-based reality. And so the new book is Beyond Materialism, the new paradigm of consciousness and contact with non-human intelligence via the unified contact modalities. So it's a new paradigm because it's a new way of seeing our reality. It's a reality that's based upon consciousness, and it's a reality that's based upon contact with non-human intelligence via, as what I described before, the contact modalities. OBEs, NDEs, UFO contact, remote viewing, ghosts and spirits, etc., etc. So that's our new book, and I look forward to any questions that you may have.
Well, what about, is there any events you want to talk about before we wrap this up
Okay.
that you have coming up? Anything
Yes.
that you're speaking at or anything?
Sure. Yes, I'm going to be attending this coming weekend at Contact in the Desert.
Nice.
And that's in
California.
California, the desert area. I could get the exact. No, it's not the end of this week. I apologize.
End of this month, right?
Yeah,
because
correct.
we have Shiny. One of our viewers are going to be reporting live from there. That's cool.
Yeah, it's at it's in the 31st, the 1st, and the 2nd. And I'll be at that event. And then in August, I have 2 lectures. One is in Hong Kong, and that is in let me get the exact date. It's the let me just look it up for a second. Not that anyone is interested in going to Hong Kong.
While you're looking that up, I will let you guys know that, yeah, Contact in the Desert, the Renaissance Indian Wells Resort and Spa. And then you can just, if you actually go to contactinthedesert.com, looks like you're able to get tickets.
Correct.
Contactinthedesert.com. Yeah.
Correct. And I look forward to anyone meeting me there, and we could sit down, have coffee, have a beer, just chill out and talk. So, and also on August the 17th, I will be in Knoxville, Tennessee. I will be at Alien Expo at the Knoxville Convention Center, and that is Saturday the 17th. I will be there all day. I'll be giving a lecture. And then the following week, I will be in, no, not the following week. Actually, it's the August the 2nd, 3rd, and the 4th. I will be at a UFO conference in Hong Kong. And then in October, for the 5th, October the 5th, I will be at Portal to Ascension Conference. And that is run by a friend of mine, Neil Gar, and that is in Irvine, California. That will be October the 5th, and it's Portal to Ascension.
Nice.
So cool.
Well, wow, you're really busy. I was going to say we're at ECETI from August 8th through August 11th, and it would be really cool if you could make it out there. But wow, you're going to be jet lagged probably coming from Hong Kong, huh?
Well, if anyone can pay for a round trip and get a place for me to stay, I'll pay for my own food. I'd be more than welcome to give a talk about what we've just did in a more formal way, and meet people. So I'm here to basically to inform humanity of this new paradigm, which is a paradigm of what really is happening with experiencers from the ground up, and which very few people actually know about. The experiencers know it. Sherry knows it.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of the direct experiencers, people don't know that this is the primary phenomenon that's taking place with individuals.
That's amazing. Well, I'm really happy I was able to stay on the air for tornado sirens going off for 30 minutes. I'm so glad that you took the time to come on here and really reveal what's really going on with this whole phenomenon. And I think it's sort of a paradigm shift happening. I mean, for all these academics to even be able to come out and do this sort of work, I don't know if they could have done that 50 years ago. You know what I mean? It was such a fringe thing. It was such a taboo thing to even put your professional career at risk. So I think it's cool that you got this professional lineup of people that's validating these people's experiences and really getting the truth out about what's really going on here.
And there's many more academics that are experiencers, but they just don't come out of the closet. And it's not only academics. I mean, we're talking about lawyers, we're talking about medical doctors, we're talking about teachers, every walk of life. The vast majority of people that took our survey, as a matter of fact, they stated in their survey that they never spoke with anyone else about their experiences except a spouse, a parent, or a child, or maybe a brother. But that's it. So most of them have kept quiet, and they kept it internally. And what it was is that as they started to tell others, and they got the pushback, maybe you need to go to see a psychiatrist,
Right.
But
that validates their story, you know what I mean? Because if you were just making something up, you'd run around and tell everybody and just, if it's just, why would you take the time to answer all those questions but not tell anyone else?
Yeah.
Just to randomly go and fill out a survey if it wasn't something real.
Well, this was actually 3 surveys. For the first 2 surveys was quantitative, and it took them at least 6 hours to do that. And then for the phase 3, which is written responses to 70 questions, the vast majority took several days to do it. So, you have to really be committed to answer all these 3 surveys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you again, Ray, and thank you, Sherry, for getting him on here, and Eileen for suggesting it and bragging on your book so much. She keeps talking about it, how great it is and everything. So I really appreciate it.
You need to get chapter 1 to read it, and if you like it, buy it.
Oh, definitely.
No one has ever done anything close to this. This is, academic research. This tells you what really is going on in the UFO contact phenomena. And to me, I'm just struck that so few people are interested in this thing, okay? Because it's not the bullshit that you see on the internet. It's not the bullshit that you get in these UFO conferences, you know, where these people act like they know it all and yet they don't know shit, you know?
Right.
But yet this is real experience. There's people like Sherry talking about their stories. There's thousands of Sherrys. And guess what? They're all having very, very similar experiences, you know? There's very little difference between Sherry and me and the other people that are having these experiences. And that's the real world. That's what's really happening. So
and it's overwhelmingly positive. That's the kicker here, you know?
Positive, transformative, and paranormal.
And with that, we will wrap this one up. I want to thank you guys. Thank you so much. This has been a great show. Everybody's loving it in the chat and everything. So, yeah, I'll have everybody that has experienced something go over and visit the site and take part in that. And I mentioned I want to get you in touch with Gosha from Cosmic Agency because she's got a huge Spanish-speaking audience that I know would love you, and they're experiencers. So thank you. Oh, yeah, you'll love her. She's awesome. So, so thank you guys in the chat. And
thank you so much. And to Sherry, who brought me to you. Sherry, okay?
Thank you.
Big hug and a kiss to you. Thank you so very much. I hope you enjoy the book. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. You have my personal email. And anytime you want to chat, we could certainly do that as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Well, awesome, you guys. Peace out.
Bye, next time.
Bye-bye.
If you'd like to support the work I do, go to paypal.me/UOTF. Thanks.